Thank you, Nick, for such a lovely meditative intro to our worship this morning. Welcome to the Wellington United Church of Christ at our Sunday worship together. We're so glad to see those of you who are in the room, and perhaps those who will also join us online as well. So good morning to you all. This worship service is streaming live from the First Church of the Brethren, west side of Chicago, near Garfield Park, once the home base for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was engaged in the open housing march in 1965. Whether you are on site or online today, I'm glad you are here, and I'm glad you are with us this morning. We acknowledge that we are rooted in the ancestral land of many peoples. There were 500 nations in the United States, or the land that is now the United States, before the Europeans came. For those of us who are in Greater Chicago, we are on the homelands of the Potawatomi people who cared for this land until forced out by non-native settlers. Today, our native siblings continue to honor this land and its waterways, practice its traditions, and celebrate their heritage. In the west, when Kay Snowfleet joins us, she is on the land of the Pueblos and the Tiwa. In the south, when Jill Reynolds joins us, she's on the lands of the Seminole. Roland and Darlene, when they are in Burlington, are on the ancestral lands of the Abenaki and the Wabanaki. These are just a few of the many, many tribes that populated this country. It is a joy to be together with you, to celebrate God's love and mercy as we seek together God's forgiveness and try to pledge for ourselves what we shall do to right the wrongs that we see in our society. We pledge ourselves to the lifelong work of making God's kingdom, the beloved community, as Dr. King would say, as real on earth as it is in heaven. Beloveds, there is so much to be grateful for. So let us dwell deeply in that spirit of gratitude as we light our candles. If you're joining through the Zoom sanctuary and have a candle nearby, I encourage you to light your candle. As we proceed with the ritual of lighting the candles, we light these candles, and thank you, Karen, for lighting our candle this morning. And there it is, a light in the darkness, as it were. Thanks so much. We light these candles, especially when we worship together, whether on screen or by phone, to remind ourselves that this is a special time. It's a time that's very different than all the other times that we spend during the week sharing and staring at screens, or we communicate with each other on our cell phones. This is the time that we set aside each week to be together as a community of faith, drawing close to the light of the divine so that our own inner lights might be renewed and restored for the week ahead. It's now time for our introit.
Please stand as you're able to join our summer introit. It's number 331 in the hymnal. We'll sing verse 2 today.
Theme of host and guests, as we just sang, is a theme for our worship this morning. Now for the call of worship. As you're able, please whether it is in person or in your muted spaces. Please follow along. May God be merciful to us and bless us.
Show us the light of your countenance and come to us.
Let your ways be known upon the earth.
Show forth your health among all nations.
Let the peoples praise you, O God.
Let all the people praise you.
Let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you judge the peoples with equity and guide all the nations upon the earth. You may be seated. And I'd like to welcome Karen Graham, who will lead us in the call to share.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And today we're doing something a little bit different. Usually we pass the basket and contribute or through the link for the group that we've identified for Helping Hands. And after talking to my boss in outreach, I got the okay to go ahead with something different this time. As you all know, or maybe don't know, I'm a registered dietitian. I've always been interested in health and fitness and trying to live healthy. It's very hard. I was a fat kid. But early in my career, I learned of a group called the Center for Science in the Public Interest, CISP. It was a group that was founded in 1971 by a group of scientists who were previously working with Ralph Nader's Center for Study of Responsible Law. So again, it gives a lot of credibility to this group who has been going since 1971. 55 years is a long time. Their mission is to conduct research and advocate for health nutrition programs along with providing consumers with useful information about their health and well-being. They take no funding from the government or corporations, which currently seems to be the same thing. Now more than ever, we need to support this group that's truly advocating for everybody's health. They don't ask, are you red or blue or, who you pray to. They support all of us in our path to health. The main way that they fundraise is through this publication that I've been getting now for a long, long time. It's called Nutrition Action. And through this subscription, you are able to learn more about what's actually going on in healthcare, in food industry, with the farm bills, all of that. Better understanding that's clearly explained to us to understand what we need to do. And they also, if you sign up for their alerts, how to quickly make your voice known to whoever represents you. Senators usually is who they go. Their call to action, it's so easy. They are very, very good at this, where everything's filled in. You can add more to whatever words. I always say I'm a dietitian, just to add a little bit more credibility, make it different. But it's so easy compared to some of the things we're asked to sign. So those are our asks today for you to subscribe to Nutrition Action or to sign up for their free alerts. I do have information that I brought in printed form today for those of you that are here with all of the options. And for those that are online, we'll send something out later in the week. For all of you, I'll need Andrew's help to make something that's usable in any way for that. But it's quick and easy and it's inexpensive. And honestly, as a dietitian, I use this so much to share with patients. How do you pick out what's the best creamer? How do you learn, what this one, long before anybody even heard of it, PFAs, forever chemicals, what they are, how to avoid them, who to continue to push to prevent them, because again, government and big business are, working together to keep us not healthy. I did want to just share a few of the successes over the years that our wonderful Nutrition Action Group did. They did exposés long ago. Many of you might remember this, of theater popcorn, and how, a large thing of theater popcorn could have 1,500 calories and a ton of trans fats. So with that, there was an exposé that then went on to change things. They had a landmark win for food labeling in the 1990s, making labels mandatory on packaging. My own professional group had nothing to do with that at all. So again, we're depending on somebody that's really focused on consumers and not their own little niche in the world of that. Menu labeling also, so finding at fast foods how many calories, how much fat was their doing, their litigation, their lawyer group. They were the leading consumer voice pushing for the passage of food safety after the E. coli and salmonella outbreaks in peanut butter years ago in 2011. They're still advocating for us, which we need it more than ever as we read about the current horrors of, how you can buy your way to food health, not having healthy food. So again, another reason. And one of the ones that I love the most is trans fats in the labeling of it, because as they discovered that trans fats are more of the culprit for heart disease than anything else, and that they're so pervasive in fried foods, additives, they made for mandatory food labeling for that too. So they really do have our backs, and now more than ever, we need to have our backs covered. And so with that, I ask that each and every one of you consider subscribing to Nutrition Action, signing up for their alerts, and being that person sharing this information with your friends and family, because that really, this grassroots movement is how change is really made. So with that, I thank you all, and I will get these passed out to all of you.
If I may read the unison words of sharing, which can be a commitment for us as a congregation, and perhaps we can read it together. How does God's love abide in anyone who has the world's goods and sees a brother, sister, or sibling in need, and yet refuses to help? Let us love not in word or speech, but in truth and action. And now we go to our first hymn, number 575 in the hymn book, "Oh, for a World."
So
like to welcome Karen Stockwell to lead us in the call to confession this morning.
By the way, that was Dr. Clinton Stockwell, who failed to introduce himself, who is our minister for today, while Anne Louise is out of the office, so to speak. So today's scripture is about Jacob's son, Joseph, who was sold into slavery in Egypt by his jealous brothers. Despite the challenges, Joseph excelled in his new environment. He had known 2 homes, but Egypt became the one where he settled. That made me think about our 2 homes, one in Chicago and one in Galena. They are our homes by choice, not necessity. They're very different, yet both have their unique appeal. As for which home will be our permanent one, we decided not to decide for now. But thinking about second homes also reminded me of immigrants to this country. My grandfather, Florian Omiatek, came to Chicago from Poland in the early 20th century. He never went back, but he married my grandmother, Maddie Krawczykowski, and lived in a Polish neighborhood. We often enjoyed Polish food and we often enjoyed Polish food at family get-togethers and heard the language spoken. It's a customary thing for immigrants to do, to find a familiar community in a strange new home. My grandfather came to better his life. I confess that through his efforts, I've benefited from his choice. But there are so many who come here because their home countries are no longer safe. Unfortunately, the ever-changing immigration policies of the Trump administration have made this country less safe for them, even if they are here legally. For instance, it's unimaginable that families who fled dangerous places like Haiti will be sent back there. Immigrants have enriched this country with their hard work and their cultural contributions. They deserve the safe home they seek. Please join me in the prayer of confession. Oh God, immigrants who come to our country seeking shelter and a better life deserve our support and gratitude for their contributions. We confess that it is easy to take them for granted. They work in places we don't see, like meat packing plants, farm fields, and in restaurant kitchens. Help us to be more aware of their presence and to continue supporting organizations like the Sanctuary Working Group. Amen. I'm sorry, I see better without my glasses. In Chicago, we live in the Irving Park neighborhood, a diverse community. Immigrants live and work among us. 2 nearby Christian churches have become mosques. There's a Muslim community center a few blocks away. Recently, a group of Latino roofers replaced the leaky roof over our den. I get my hair cut a couple blocks away by an Albanian woman who works 6 days a week. And by the way, she only charges $20 for a haircut. In Galena, many of the snow removers, construction workers, and cooks are Latino. At least 7 restaurants and a food truck there in Galena serve Mexican cuisine. You can sit in a courtyard and drink giant margaritas at Campeche, enjoy sizzling fajitas at Los Aztecas, or get a fancy coffee drink at the Churro Corner Cafe. While ICE continues to threaten immigrant communities, they are not letting that hold them back. It's a sign of their endurance and their adaptability. Immigrants are here to stay. This country would not function without them. Please remember them as we pass the peace today.
Peace, everybody online.
Peace.
Peace of God.
Thank you.
I'm an immigrant.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.
Peace, peace.
Peace of God, everyone.
Karen, peace.
Karen.
Peace to everybody at home.
Good to see you, Craig. And Dexter.
Looking great, Claudette.
All right.
Please join in our hymn of assurance, number 576, for the healing of the nations. We'll sing verses 1 and 2.
Thank you, buddy, and thank you, choir. I like all kinds of music and grew up on rock and roll, then got into folk music and a little bit of gospel. This is the 50th year of one of my favorite songs, rock and roll song, and it's by the Doobie Brothers, and it's called Taking It to the Streets. And I'll come back to that commission at the end of the service. It begins with these words: "You don't know me, but I'm your brother. I was raised here in this living hell. You don't know my kind in your world. Fairly soon, the time will tell." The backstory of this really was a poem written by the sister of Michael McDonald, the lead singer for many of the tunes that the Doobies did. And it reflected the inequality in urban spaces. And today, we're going to be dealing with the question of immigration, what it means to be a host, and what it means to be a guest. In a world with sometimes shrinking but mostly abundant resources. And the Joseph story shares both of those sides of the story that we face even in our world today. The passage, and I have this big old book here called the Inclusive Bible, and it reads well. It's very nice, even though it's very bulky. And but I am glad to read from the text in Genesis 45. "Then Joseph was no longer able to hold back his feelings in front of his attendants. And he cried out to them, "Leave me." He's crying out to those who were Egyptian. He's asking the Egyptians to leave. So no one was present when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. But he wept so loudly that all of his Egyptian attendants heard him, and the news of it reached the Pharaoh's palace. The Pharaoh, by the way, was also a foreigner. He was a Hyksos, a foreign Pharaoh at the time where Joseph was there. So he was another foreigner, accepting a foreigner who again is addressing other foreigners, as it were. Joseph said to his brothers, "It is I, Joseph. Pardon me, you don't know me, but I'm your brother. Is my father really still alive?" The brothers could not answer. They were so dumbfounded. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me." When he had come closer, he said to them, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Please don't rebuke yourselves for having sold me here. God sent me here ahead of you so that I could save your lives. These have been days of famine in the land for 2 years, and for the next 5 years there will be no tilling and no harvesting. But God sent me ahead of you to guarantee that you will have descendants on the earth, and to keep you alive as a great body of survivors." The story is that Joseph was an interpreter of dreams, and that the Pharaoh had a very troubling dream. And even though he was thrown in prison because Potiphar's wife accused him of advances which he did not make, she was actually doing the opposite. Sometimes women or do not get full treatise in our text. Dinah is one of the siblings of the brothers, and Dinah does not get much press either. But so Pharaoh heard that Joseph, who was in prison, knew how to interpret dreams. And so Joseph came and said, "Well, this is the meaning of your dream. There are going to be 7 days of plenty and then 7 days of famine." And I think the Pharaoh knew of actually Joseph's integrity and placed him to be in authority over the properties and the lands and the resources in Egypt at that time. "Hurry back to your father and give him this message from Joseph. God has made me governor of all Egypt. Come to me here at once. Do not delay. You will live here with me in the territory of Goshen. You, your children, your grandchildren, your flocks, your herds, your possessions. I will provide for you here. For the next 5 years will be years of famine, so that you and your children and all that you own will be spared from destitution. You can see for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that it is I who speak to you." And Benjamin is brought back to Jacob, and Judah stays in his place until they all return. The word reached Pharaoh that Joseph's brothers had arrived. The Pharaoh and the court officials were pleased. Pharaoh told Joseph to tell his brothers, "Tell your brothers, load your donkeys, return to the land of Canaan. Bring your father, your families back to me. I will give you land and the best soil in Egypt, so that you can enjoy the fat of the land. You are also charged to stay in them. Do this, take wagons from Egypt for your children and your spouses. Bring your father, please come. Don't worry about your belongings, for the best that is in Egypt will be yours." So here, these foreigners, these who were once guests, are now showing examples of what it means to be host. They set off and traveled from Egypt to their father in the land of Canaan. They told him, "Joseph is alive. He is ruling over Egypt." Jacob was stunned. He could hardly believe what he heard. When he heard all that Joseph had told the others, and when he saw the wagons Joseph had sent for the return trip, his spirit soared. Israel, that is Jacob, said, "Yes, I believe. My son Jacob is alive. Now I must go to see him before I die." And at some point, Jacob gives a blessing to his sons. And I want to read this now because it comes up later in my talk about Joseph. And just a few words about Joseph from Genesis 49. Joseph is a fruitful vine, a healthy vine close to water, with branches climbing the wall. Vicious archers attacked Joseph. They pressed the attack fiercely, but Joseph's bow stayed taut. Joseph's tireless arms prevailed. By the hands of the strong one of Jacob, through the name of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. The funny thing is that there's not a record in the Joseph story where he used such a bow. But it reminds me of another story that I want to share with you also a little bit this morning. We had a chance to see the play Odysseus. And the last scene, as you may know, or may remember, was that Odysseus, when he returned as a beggar, not accepted hospitably by the suitors, was the only one who could bend the bow and lace it with the string. Years ago, I remember reading again a book called The Secular City by Harvey Cox. My faculty mentor at the time did not like the book. He said it was a really good sociology, but very bad theology. I would later revisit that book and argue the opposite, that maybe The Secular City is actually very good theology. Later I'd read Dietrich Bonhoeffer and discover the phraseology, a this-worldly Christianity, a secularized version that engaged the world. I think also in the Harvey Cox book, Cox was arguing that for a this-worldly Christianity, as the intended role for faith communities who represent the so-called Abrahamic traditions in the earth, in the world. In the late 1970s, through much of my career, I was involved in urban ministry training for college and seminary students. I directed an urban training institute in New Orleans and moved to Chicago to do an urban studies program for seminarians called SCOOP. Ultimately, I concluded my career as director of an off-campus program called Chicago Semester. We, as we said then, engaged both the boardroom and the streets. And we tried to understand the full art nature of the city of Chicago as an example of all cities. I had read the works of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who came across terms like a this-worldly Christianity and the secularization of the church. This contrasts rather starkly with otherworldly models who devalue and in many ways undermine the bounty and the abundance of the created order. There are many terms that have been used by scholars in reference to the church as a hospital for sick souls, or a preparatory stage for heavenly bliss. And I confess that I have some cousins who are their faith is basically preparatory for heaven and to escape hell. I believe in our tradition as pilgrims, as basically heirs of the Reformed tradition, that we have a responsibility for the earth and the world and for the people in it. For me, the vocation of the Christian, the follower of the way of Jesus, is one who is incarnational, being in and for, and I'd like to say even, like it or not, of the world. To be Adam, person, one must recognize that the person who is Adam is also Adamah, from the earth, an earthling. And those are the Hebrew terms in Genesis 1. It is the bounteous world of God's good creation, of which we are at our best stewards and overseers. The Genesis story begins with the creation of life and the diversity of all living creatures, including humans. The call to fill the earth is today better understood, I think, in terms of sustainability and caring for the earth and all of our relations, as we might say, according to our indigenous tribal friends. The earth was created, and here the Hebrew word is very stark. Tob meod, good beyond measure, good beyond conception. So to really disdain, deny, or to ignore the earth and to deny our responsibility to it, I think is virtually a sacrilege. It is a dishonor to our role as being stewards to God's good creation. It is our role and responsibility to tend the pastures of the earth and to nurture the inhabitants of the cities as well. This is a call for a secular, incarnational faith in action, not an otherworldly one. The story of the Israelites commences with the story of Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, and their progeny, which ultimately includes the story of Joseph and his 11 other brothers. These became the 12 tribes of Israel, with the caveat, Dinah, the sister, was not included. Levi got a pass because Levi became a priest. And Joseph's name is not listed as a tribe, but Jacob gave Joseph a double portion. And his sons from an Egyptian mother in Egypt were named Ephraim and Manasseh. And those were the final two of the 12 tribes for the 12 tribes of Israel. So such was Jacob's blessing to Joseph, that his two sons that he had born in Egypt would also become two tribes of the later nation of Israel. You all know the story. After 10 sons were born to Leah and her handmaidens, Jacob was finally born to Jacob's favorite wife, Rachel. And then Jacob made the mistake of honoring overly so Joseph and giving him what really in Hebrew is a tribe of long sleeves. Other translations say multicolored coat, but that is not in the original Hebrew. So that Jacob and Benjamin became the preferred father of Joseph and Benjamin, and the other sons felt cheated. And as a result, they sold Joseph into slavery to the Pharaoh of Egypt. Then Joseph stated, "I am Joseph, your brother. God has made me Pharaoh's chief counselor, the head of the household and governor of all Egypt." So ironically, the selling of Joseph into slavery, there was a plan involved that would ultimately rescue Jacob's whole family and would save actually the entire Israelite nation, for its history would endure. After selling off Joseph to Potiphar, whose wife was intoxicated with Joseph's handsome physicality, a famine appeared in Palestine. The family of Jacob, which included the same brothers whose horrendous misdeed resulted in Joseph's personal trials, led also to Joseph's eventual rise to power. Joseph tested his brothers' character and compliance, whether they could be trusted, and whether there could be any possibility of reconciliation. And I can hear the lyrics once again in the Doobie Brothers song. "You don't know me, but I'm your brother." These lyrics were taken from a singer written by Michael McDonald and a band, and now 50 years later, they introduced a video, which I will share with you later, which contextualizes the songs in ways that I think we as a church community can identify with. But the brothers eventually passed these tests. The younger Benjamin was brought to Joseph, kept as captive, while the other brothers went back to tell Jacob that Joseph was alive, and eventually the family is restored. The Pharaoh consented to giving provisions to the family and then rewarded them with the land of Goshen in the northwestern corner of the Nile River Delta, some of the most fertile land in the entire Nile River Valley. By any standard, the family was perhaps not deserving of the grace given or the provisions shared. The actions of Jacob, and the retaliation of the sons were not just forgiven, however, they were forgotten. Such a reward was the recognition of the character of Joseph and an acknowledgement of the wise administration and faithful service that Joseph provided. The family remained in Egypt well beyond the 7 years of famine. When Jacob died, he was buried in the cave of the patriarchs called the Cave of Machpelah, where he was placed at rest. Going back to the blessing of Joseph by Jacob. Karen and I recently saw the new blockbuster film, The Odyssey, which featured Matt Damon as Odysseus. Jacob's blessing upon Joseph is remarkably similar to what happened to Odysseus. Through the symbol of the bow and the strong arms and the string, which is very metaphorical for Joseph and perhaps also for Odysseus, despite their military significance. Odysseus, at many points, broke Zeus's law. Zeus's law commanded the host to give hospitality to the stranger and the vulnerable. And so even when Odysseus went back masquerading as a beggar, they did not receive hospitality due him, but they were rebuked by the suitors. At the end, when Odysseus reclaimed home, he was restored as a king of Ithaca, but he had to use the bow and the arrow, the strength of his arms, to really secure that status. Ironically, there is a similar motif in the story of Joseph that we find in the story of Odysseus. His bow remained steady. His strong arm stayed limber because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. Joseph remained strong. He showed his leadership skills, his compassion, his ability to forgive, to let go, and to provide yet another group of strangers and immigrants with all that they needed so that they could survive and endure the 7 years of famine and beyond. While many interpreters question the patriarchalism of the period and the deception inherent in the schemes and tests Joseph used to see if he could trust his brothers, there is much admirable, I think, in the character of Joseph. Joseph also was a stranger from within. Unlike the suitors in the Odyssey, there was reconciliation and restoration in the Joseph story. Joseph had the blessing and support of the Pharaoh, and he had risen to the position of administrative control over the imperial economy. The creation of storage cities by Joseph, and the just distribution of food and land to an immigrant population allowed the Egyptians to use their host status to welcome the guests into their land, to endure and survive the 7 years of famine. This is a story of true hospitality, wherein the guest, the stranger, the outcast, the slave, the criminally charged, became the host and the one who gave hospitality to another group of others. Even as we today in Wellington Church recognize our settler status. So Joseph also was a settler in a strange land. He was a guest who became a host, recognizing his guest status, identifying with those who were immigrants in the land. Jacques Derrida, from his classic book on hospitality, shows how difficult it is to achieve, to allow the guests among us to also become hosts. That's very difficult, to allow those who are immigrant to become resident to the point where they too can become hosts to other strangers. The Israelite immigrants were those whom the Pharaoh might have considered to be the other, the alien, the stranger, perhaps even a threat to the Egyptians. They actually never assimilated into Egyptian culture. This was indeed the perception 400 years later with another Pharaoh who knew not Joseph, who basically kept the Israelites in as captives, as slaves. But here it is Joseph who becomes not just a brother's keeper and provider. He is the stranger and the brother who becomes familiar to them once again. He is the kinsman who showed what it means to be the neighbor to those in need. He is the guest who becomes the host, giving hospitality to the otherwise estranged and immigrant family. Granted, we at Wellington as a community may not have the power or the social station of a Joseph to offer such incredible provisions in a time of great duress. But we do what we can with what we have. We recognize that we are part of a vast network of other hosts, of other providers who too are guests in the land. We say in the Lord's Prayer, as we will say again later today, that we pray for and grant a daily bread in an ongoing way. We continue to hope, believing and praying that a new world is possible, that even on earth one day prosperity and peace might be shared on earth as it is in heaven, universally and not just with a few. This is why we keep on saying the Lord's Prayer with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who once inhabited this pulpit. We believe that the earth bends towards justice, even though in our time we know we must help with the process. We must often help with the bending and doing our part. I'm going to conclude with actually two benedictions. And one is a video of the song that the Doobie Brothers have done with added video that contextualizes the poem written by Michael McDonald's sister in ways that I think we will appreciate. Please listen and enjoy, and I will conclude in a moment with the standard benediction. Amen. Thanks for enduring that. We now go to the prayers of the people and the Jesus prayer. And I'd like to ask if anyone, either online or in front of us here in space, has a prayer to share.